So Brian did a really showcase, like he came in, kind of knew what his topic or figured out his topic early and then wrote everything about it. Not me. I came in thinking I knew what my topic was. That went out the window first semester. Every semester I was like, oh, this could be my topic. I was learning all sorts of new things. And when it came to research residency, I had 5 very diverse topics that I had a lit review, at least a paper I'd written in a class for. And it was really hard for me to hone down and choose one. And I will say, like, it's okay if you don't know what your topic is yet. It's okay if you want to kind of explore. It's okay if, like, you're walking into research residency with a lot of topics, or like, I don't really know, I have interests, but I haven't really done anything. You are given, it is supposed to be done in one semester. You're usually given more time to complete it. The less prepared you walk in, obviously, the more work you have to do during the class. So if you walk in with stuff already done, it's a little, you can start sooner collecting data than just walking in with just an idea. Anna, I'm going to pass it to you.
I was just going to say that I kind of had the opposite experience. Like I did a bunch of lit reviews, and it kind of helped me rule out like what I didn't want to do. And then I had a really clear idea. And I would say for me, it really helped me to take research residency before comps. And I think that's maybe not the way it's scheduled, but that's how it worked out for me. And that really helped me to focus my studies.
Me as well. I thought that was super helpful. And I'll also say, kind of jumping back to coursework, but also related to research residency, as much as you can, take advantage of opportunities to publish. I think that the publishing process helped me approach my research residency with a really great background of like understanding what the editorial process looks like and the peer review process. And it really helps to just kind of have a goal of like, my lit review could turn into something that I could publish with my instructor. And it worked out really nicely to do it that way. And then I had a good deal of publishing done when I graduated as well.
So unless it's changed, Dr. Lua, correct me if I'm wrong, the residency part, you're not on campus or a resident, like living, you're still in your house, and it's essentially a course that you do a small research project. So it's start to finish. You have to like submit a proposal. It's kind of like the dissertation process where you have to submit a proposal to whoever the instructor is for the course. And then you have to submit an IRB and get IRB approval. And then you have to collect the data, analyze the data, and write a final report. And the goal of it with the residency part is that you either submit to a conference or submit for publication, and you can choose which one. But the result is that you don't have to be accepted, but you have to submit for it. So you're submitting for consideration, or both, as Anna's saying. And if you're in a different location, like I teach, I'm faculty in higher ed. And if you're I did not have to go through the ODU IRB for the research residency because I collected data from my students. So I had to go through the IRB process at my work. So if you are kind of in a space where you're in 2 higher ed spaces, and you have another IRB review process, and you want to use your students or that space, you can go through that. I did go through the IRB process with Dr. Lua in another class prior, so I did have that experience. I do suggest you go through the ODU IRB process at least one time before you hit your dissertation, so you kind of understand what they're expecting, because every institution is different. He gave us kind of a timeline of when things were due. So we had like submission dates and deadlines, but you're working on your own project. And he was flexible that if you couldn't meet the deadline for whatever reason, because everyone's project was different, that he would work with you. And so we met as a course like 1 or 2 times as a whole class, but then we were kind of working on our own, but we were given a framework, like a course of like submission dates and things we had to complete.
Then Wanda had asked if she could can I use the data I'm planning to use for the actual dissertation in that course. So that's going to be an IRB issue, because if there's data, like you're saying, I know there's this giant data set that already exists that would work for my dissertation, then that's basically, after the fact I think with this term post hoc data. And so they're not real fond of that for dissertations, right? So you really can't begin collecting data for your dissertation until after the IRB approves it, right? So like if you're, I'll give you an example for me. So I was using live students in live classes that I taught. So I had to get IRB approval both from my own institution and from ODU. Even though it's a class that I taught, it's a class that I've taught for 25 years. I was going to teach the class and do the stuff whether they approved it or not. I just wouldn't be able to use the data, right? So but because in those cases you're working with human subjects, you can't publish information about that data on them without IRB approval, because you've got to do informed consent. So if you're thinking you've got this large repository of data that already exists that's going to work for your dissertation, you need to have that conversation with somebody now, because they're not fond of post hoc data for dissertations, and you can't begin collecting data now for your dissertation. It's way, way too early.
A big thing too is that you don't know what you don't know about the data collection for your specific project. So for mine, I had this whole plan that I was like, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to be great, and all the pieces are going to fall together and it's going to be so wonderful. And then whenever I actually implemented it, it kind of fell apart for my research residency. So that was tremendously helpful for whenever I went to go actually collect the data for my dissertation. I was able to collect it in one semester. So I would view it not as like I'm collecting data, I view it as like I'm piloting what I want to do, especially if sounds like Scott and I were both kind of like using live students in live classes and the data that existed in the classes for what we were doing. Especially if you haven't done a lot of publishing before, like I hadn't.
So earlier, Scott talked about doing research residency as soon as possible. I was asked to do it earlier than it was technically scheduled in my plan of work when I was planning to do it, and I decided to wait. And so I just wanted to give an alternate view to that. You do take some research courses like the ANOVA class, the analysis of variance, the qualitative course, and it would be helpful to have those under your belt before walking into research residency, because you are analyzing data. So it depends on what kind of data you're collecting. And so I decided to make sure I had all those courses prior to doing research residency, so I would know how to analyze data a little bit more than I did before taking those classes.
Thanks, and that's Irene. That you said. So I should give people a little more. So when I came into this program, I had already taken all of my statistics courses in a prior degree, so I already had the stats background that a lot of folks don't get. Just the nature of my educational journey, I'd already done stats by the time I got here. So really good point, Irene.
I'm going to confuse you guys all more and just say that I am kind of in Scott's boat, where I encourage you to take it sooner rather than later. It'll help you to narrow down what you want for your dissertation topic. It'll help you collect the data and kind of pilot it. And I had another point. It was my main point, and it was the best point. It takes longer than you think it's going to take. So you're going to collect your data. And for me, I needed a whole 8-week subterm of data. So my data collection was 8 weeks just for one class. And then if I had to wait for another class or something, then all of a sudden that can wind up really taking a long time. So I recommend taking it as soon as you feel comfortable, maybe sooner than most people feel comfortable, because you will have imposter syndrome for it. So.
I would also say, don't feel the need to do it perfectly. I learned a lot of lessons from my research residency that I was like, I am not going to write about this at all for my dissertation topic, because I basically I felt like I explored it. I did not like it as much as I thought I was going to. And so it was beneficial, even though it also kind of felt like a failure. because I didn't get out of it what I thought I was going to get out of it, but I was a valuable lesson. And so I feel like that's a really important thing to remember throughout this process, is that it is a process, and that there will be setbacks and there will be situations where you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But it all kind of contributes to that end goal, because I definitely felt like if I had gone down the path that, if I didn't have the experience of my research residency and I continued to go down that path, then my dissertation would not have been as pleasant, if that's a word that I can use to describe my dissertation process.